What do you ride?
Depends on the day. I have a 2021 Himalayan Gravel Gray,
Okay.
2019 Black Interceptor.
That's kind of how it started. I had 20 motorcycles in my garage.
I didn't bring my vlogging gear, but I did bring a little bit of riding gear. Dylan said he's gonna take me for a spin. I said I gotta go with the Moto Guzzi V85 TT. I think they're gorgeous looking.
Welcome to MCC Just Motos.
Hey guys, it's Andy. I'm here at Throttle Company in Columbus, Ohio. We're here to see the premier Royal Enfield, Moto Guzzi, and vintage motorcycle company that is Throttle Company. Let's go check them out.
Our Royal Enfield side. So this whole room is nothing but Interceptors. We've got a 1963 Interceptor to go with it, right over there, first generation.
Yep.
Over here we have our classics, classic 350s, all through here. We've got both chromes, so the Halcyons, military ones, and on this side is our remaining Royal Enfield. So we have our Meteors over there. We have all of our GTs. You'll see we have all of them. All of the Strands and Himalayas over there. So over here we have our Moto Guzzi and vintage room. We have almost all the Moto Guzzis as well. So we have all the V85s lined up here. Pretty much every flavor of those. Okay. And we have a used travel, brand new travel, so I can compare and contrast the two, what's different.
Okay.
We have the V7 Special and our V7 Stones right over there.
Okay.
We got a couple of used Moto Guzzis, that's one of them right there. You got one of these guys going out the door. Yeah, so then you get on the vintage side.
Right. And what do we got here? We got some...
yeah, so I have a two BSAs, A65, right? So I have a 1966
Yep.
BSA Lightning. And you can tell it's a Lightning because it has the two carbs. This is a 1965 A65 Thunderbolt.
Oh boy.
That's one of the owner's bikes, right? So this is one of our owner's bikes. It's a 1974 KZ900. I hope I got that right.
Yes.
I don't remember.
Year-wise, yeah. Well, these are wicked. These are wild.
We have a couple more
Hondas.
CB 750s. These are also one of our owner's bikes. This is a 1970 and this is a 1972.
We can tell which ones aren't for sale.
Yeah, because we got the big not for sale sticker on them.
But some definite eye candy.
Yeah, so it's almost like working in a museum. So I love this bike right here. This one right here.
Oh, it has ghost flames.
It does have the ghost flames, and that's why I love it so much.
Wow.
All right, so I had a fellow Himalayan rider and actually Royal Enfield owner come out and meet me at Throttle Company. Andy, thanks for coming. What kind of bikes do you got?
So I've got a 2021 Himalayan Gravel Gray.
Okay.
And then I have a 2019 Black Interceptor Mark III. That's what they call it.
How, and you've been riding, what, 2 years you said?
Almost 2 years, yeah, 2 years in March.
And your Himalayan was your first bike?
It was, yeah, I bought it right here at Throttle Company.
What do you think of the Royal Enfield brand, and has it kind of encircled you? Tell me a little bit about that.
It's just an awesome brand. I mean, once I stumbled upon it, they just sucked me right in. Really
Cool, very cool.
So.
What do you think of the Throttle Company? And you said you've been here before they grew. What do you think of how it's looking inside?
Yeah, so
what do you
the
think of the vibe?
first time I stepped foot in here was actually on my birthday. Talked to Nichole, and she talked to me for about 2 hours or so, and sat on a bunch of bikes. Came back, picked my Himalayan out, bought it, been riding ever since.
That's awesome. And now you're thinking about, you said maybe getting a classic.
Maybe a classic 350, yeah.
What about the community in the area, in Columbus area? You know, for Royal Enfield motorcycle, tell me a little bit about that.
It's a great community. You know, these guys do bike nights. There's a big presence here in Columbus.
Is it just motorcycle or specific Royal Enfield?
It's motorcycles in general, yeah. And then these guys do the Royal Enfield one ride in the summertime.
Okay. You gonna try and do the Distinguished Gentleman's Ride?
I did that last year. I did that in May. Yeah,
All right,
yeah,
cool.
it was a lot of fun. Weather wasn't great.
Yeah. Well, speaking of which, I'm about to go head out on a little ride here with Dylan. Again, thanks for stopping by.
Yeah.
All right, cool, man. Great to meet you.
Yeah, take care.
Cool. I didn't bring my vlogging gear, but I did bring a little bit of riding gear. Dylan said he's gonna take me for a spin. That's really cool. I said I gotta go with the Moto Guzzi V85 TT. I think they're gorgeous looking. I've never ridden one. There's one right there. Dun, dun, dun. So I think I'm gonna go take a V85 TT for a little spin with Dylan. We'll see. Then we'll chit chat a little bit. Let's go ride. That's what I'm taking. And I'm gonna follow that, so let's go. Okay, I gotta ride the V85 TT. I don't know what exact version it was. It reminded me a lot of the Himalayan in the fact of the nimbleness of it. This one has a 19-inch Himalayan, has a 21-inch. It has more pep. It can wheelie pretty nice. Yeah, it reminded me of a little bit better damp suspension Himalayan with more pep, comfort, really nice. I got some more thoughts, but it's really cool they let me drive it. He was riding the Scram 411, and we're gonna chit chat a little bit. So we're here with Dylan Paul. Thank you for letting me come. Let's start off first of all with what brands do you carry at Throttle Company?
Okay, so Royal Enfield, of course, Moto Guzzi, as you mentioned, and then really just vintage bikes. And that's how we started out, was doing vintage bikes. And by that, I mean kind of pre-80s.
Okay.
So from the 60s to the 80s, it winds up being like British bikes up until like 70s, early 70s, and then they kind of all went out of business. And then we kind of do Hondas till then, and then really draw the line about 1980.
Okay. How long Throttle Company's been around?
Yeah, really, I guess technically, if you ask it that way, 3 years. We just started. You saw walk around there. She and I started it as like T-shirts and we call it a pop-up shop, but you'd go to like makers markets, and be like, "We're gonna have a motorcycle shop, I swear." And I feel like you just look at people and they're like, "Okay, I'd love to have one too." And we did it, and it all worked out as far as. My dad had a furniture business. He was shutting it down at the same time. It just timing worked out perfectly, except for COVID. if you do your math, about 2.5 years ago is like the time when they were actually the first time we got our first 3 bikes delivered. Our demo bikes was the day they were like, "Don't leave the house."
Oh, good.
And so it's been kind of crazy to open a business in that environment, but we all worked for ourselves. We didn't have any employees at that point, so we didn't have to hire. We didn't have to fire anyone or figure out what to do. And we just worked from home. So
got it.
Kind of been going ever since.
So where's Throttle Company, by the way?
Columbus, Ohio. This is 1130 West Mound Street, just off the highway, just off 70. And Columbus is a fantastic town for motorcycles. It's not something people first think about, but Ohio especially is like 3rd or 4th always in states as far as motorcycle registrations, behind California, of course, and Florida. And that's just crazy. So it's a great market for it.
Tell me about the aesthetics of the store, interior, exterior, how you guys came upon the store. Because I come in there and I'm like, whoa, I think they nailed it. But I'll let you.
It's almost all luck. We looked around, obviously, for a lot of buildings. We just rent currently. But this was abandoned. And I mean, like, nobody been in 20 years.
Wow.
All the electrical was stolen out of it. It was like, this floor, you can see a little bit of paint on there. It was dirt. It was like an inch of dirt. There was a weird mezzanine thing that someone had built in here. All the windows were boarded up and broken. There was no light, like no electricity, like I said. So we're going around with cell phones, like, I think it looks good. There's no graffiti at all. This is how it looked.
Do you know what the bones were?
Yeah, so originally it started as a monument company. Now there's a cemetery kind of catty corner from us across the streets there. And they set up this monument, cemetery, headstone place. And actually, if you look up here, these are called gantry cranes. So they could bring giant slabs in and out, and, bring a truck in here, or whatever, put a giant, statue or whatever, a finished piece, or either bring the stone in. But it hasn't been anything for 20 years.
Okay.
And we just kind of got lucky. A lot of construction happened during that COVID time. We were only in the first section, which is now just the shop.
Right.
Which is like 2,000 square feet. And it's crazy. You talked to another Andy who was here, and he was like, "Oh, I bought my bike when we had it over there." I think it's hilarious when people are like, "Oh, I've been a customer or whatever since then," because the shop, I mean, you'd come in and we do test drives, and there's a guy like hammering on a bike in the back, because they're vintage bikes, and he's like trying to get some bolt unstuck or grinding on something or whatever, and you're just like, "Yeah, these are great bikes," just trying to yell over it. And it's crazy to think that we did all that because we have so much space now. This is about 7,000 square feet now, but it was 2,000 in the beginning.
Wow.
We did everything there.
So you guys are loaded on bikes. That I come in and I'm like trying to weave in and out.
Yeah.
That's a good problem to have, first of all.
Well,
how many bikes you got?
I think it's about 60 Royal Enfields.
About on the Moto Guzzi side?
So we have one of every V85. Definitely. We don't have the Centenario, but they stopped doing those, so that's the 100-year anniversary.
Yeah.
We have almost every V7. We just sold the Blue Special, which was the most popular one. And then I guess we have every V9.
I was gonna say,
two different colors.
Right.
We have those.
And soon to get the V100, I'm heard, right?
Yeah, that's supposed to be. This is funny if you watch this in the future. So really, it's only like a handful now. It's probably 6 or 7. We do consignment too.
Right.
So at least one is a consignment bike. A lot of them, the ones that say not for sale, are probably my dad's.
How many of the classic bikes do you have that would roughly you say for sale?
Oh, well, I'd love to have like 20 or 30. That was sort of the original plan. Lately, the new bikes have kind of taken over that space. So really, it's only like a handful now. It's probably 6 or 7. We do consignment too.
Right.
So at least one is a consignment bike. A lot of them, the ones that say not for sale, are probably my dad. I was just saying this right before when we were setting this up, but our original plan was to have 2 of every color, because inevitably you don't have the blue one, and some guy says, "Oh, do you have the blue one? Oh, I was gonna buy the blue one." You're like, "I have 60 bikes, but I don't have the blue one," or whatever. You try to have everything, and it can be tough sometimes. And Royal Enfield, think about when we started, and it's not even 10 years ago. If you go back, Royal Enfield, they had 2 models. They had the Classic and the Bullet. That's it. Right. And in America, they only had 500. It's one engine. So now they have 3 series of motorcycles, essentially, the 350, the 411, and the 650. And there are a lot more motorcycles. That's at least 80 motorcycles. So we're close to having 2 of every one. I think we probably have 2 of everything except Meteors, because I was just telling you they're impossible to get. And we have a couple, but we have a lot of bikes. Cool. Because I hate when someone shows up, well, I don't have that one. I hate disappointing people that way. Yeah. Both these brands are pretty cool because Royal Enfield's 120 years and Moto Guzzi's 100-year anniversary. Just had it last year. So both old kind of heritage brands or whatever. That's kind of how it started. It was just my dad and I. Right. We had, honestly, what really was that got us, addicted to the motorcycle thing, the vintage motorcycles especially, was the Mecum auctions in Vegas.
Yep.
Let's go check it out. And flew me out there because he was there for a furniture.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
But it's still more vintage motorcycles than you'll ever see. There's rare bikes that you've only heard of or seen in magazines.
Here's a Vixen or whatever.
Yeah, and they'll have like 3 or 4 of them.
Yeah,
and they're perfect condition. So that got us just way into it. So we started collecting those before we opened the shop. Yeah. Before we moved anything into this building. I had 20 motorcycles in my garage. And so it'd be like, "Oh, you want to get that one out?" We had to move 5 or 6 of them out of the way. It was packed. So that basically this whole thing was just out of the garage originally. Wow. And we would just buy a bike that needed some work, fix it up, sell it. That became this thing.
Gotcha. And Dylan, how many bikes would you say are in your personal garage right now?
Well, it's funny. I moved a couple over there, but it's really not that many. It's like 7 or 8. I have
not that many, everybody.
Most of them belong to the shop. I guess one of them. Well, no. Okay, 3 of them are mine.
Let's hear it.
My Interceptor is here, but I'll ride that back and forth. It has heated grips. It's set up kind of for winter. I have bags on it, so I could like bring some stuff. Right. And
that's the white and red one.
Yeah,
that's pretty cool. I want to show you this one. Okay. Yeah.
And I've got a CB550. I've got 2
really
90s Nighthawks, which were like my first bike.
Yep.
So I bought my first bike. It was a 92 Nighthawk, so it's a 750s, right? Okay. And then I was like, I like this thing, but it's so nice and stock.
Yeah.
I don't want to mess with it.
Nope.
So I found another one that had been sitting. Guy said a year.
Okay.
But it was like 10 years. And now I know it's sitting forever. So I was like, well, I got this other one as an example, and it runs so well, I could just use it as the example. I had that thing running in a week, and it was just perfect. And so then I made a bunch of custom changes to that and stuff, and that's sort of what started just working on them like crazy. So I still have those.
Okay.
I have an old Triumph, a 72 Triumph. It's debatable whether or not it's a Bonneville or it's a 650.
Okay.
And that is just like a long-term project.
Sure.
These are projects that were like started, and then we moved to the shop, and then we're just like, oh, this one lives here. So that one was a take it all the way down, put it all the way back together, and it's half back together.
Okay.
That's how everybody.
Are you chomping at the bit to get your hands on a bike that you don't have right now?
Like, what would I love to have?
Yeah.
Well, you're talking about the V85. I'd love to have a V85 Moto Guzzi. And
beautiful motorcycle.
That was the one I was going to do. But then when the V100 is coming out, I kind of been waiting to see, do I love that one? Do I have to have it? So I love it. So I'm trying to choose between those two. The V100 could be one of those. I'm just leaving space for if it completely blows my mind. Yeah, I have no idea. Cool. On paper, it is the bike I would want because I don't need an off-road bike. I feel like if I wanted an off-road bike, I have the benefit of having multiple bikes. So I would get something. I would get a Scram and make it more off-road, you know, something like that. I don't need a bike that can do everything. Okay. So I want a more focused bike. So I would want a more road-specific bike, and that's basically the difference between the two. So
very cool. So what kind of events do you guys host?
Well, we have bike night once a month. We have like an anniversary show, which is in July. That's when we officially opened. We just had Friendsgiving. Okay. We're big on that kind of thing. Here's the way that we think about it. The most concise way I have of explaining it is we spent most of our lives as customers of a motorcycle shop. So I really am always trying to think of what a customer is going to see when they're walking in or what they want. And that's something that I always thought was weird about other motorcycle shops is they just shut the doors at 5 o'clock and everybody go home. And I just feel like, well, you got all these cool bikes and maybe I want to talk to the guy about, you know, what's coming up or anything like that. So we're doing all that stuff. I'm at least for now, I'm still in the stage of I'm not jaded by the whole thing or whatever. So I love motorcycles. I guess the thing I didn't mention was kickstands and coffee.
Okay.
It's like cars and coffee, but motorcycles.
Okay.
And that's every Saturday. There are a lot of events happening, and that has been a huge benefit for our community or our efforts to try to grow a community because
and that will also bring people back in here, I'm guessing.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because vintage bikes, I love vintage motorcycles, but you can't just have your own. You can't just have one motorcycle.
Right.
You can't just have
one vintage. Right?
Yeah, my one bike is a 1970 whatever. If your friends are gonna say, "Let's go out riding this Saturday," or whatever, you go out to start it and it won't start for whatever reason. I don't know. Battery's dead. Carbs are leaking. Who knows?
Right.
But that's why a modern fuel-injected bike is so nice. And they pair so well together.
You just go.
So the vintage group is great too because those guys are like, I like these bikes. I like working on this bike, and they're great for I have a problem with this or I need this part or whatever. But eventually they all come to us because they're like, I just want a bike that runs.
Right.
That
That's
new
cool.
Classic 350
right.
is perfect because it's under $5,000, 3-year warranty, and it looks like a bike from the 40s, 50s, 60s, and that appeals to everyone in that world where if you have any interest in a classic bike, it's just like, well, just pick up one of those and that'll be my bop around town, go to bike nights when my other bike won't start, and it's a perfect bike for that.
Cool. Do you notice that there's a big difference between like the Moto Guzzi community, the Royal Enfield community, the classic community, or is it just a motorcycle community? I mean,
the thing that I never thought that we would be able to do, it seemed like climbing a mountain, was turning people who aren't motorcyclists into motorcyclists. Royal Enfield does that amazing. And I call it approachability or accessibility. When you look at any one of these bikes, even the 650, right? 650 seems a little big for some people, but all of those bikes, a new rider, someone who knows nothing about motorcycles, looks at those and says, I could ride that. I think I could ride that. And the Meteor especially is that way. Meteor, Classic 350. The difference on those two is looks, obviously, but riding position. So some people just don't love the Meteor riding position. And that appeals to newer riders or people coming back into motorcycling so much more. So let's call those are the Royal Enfield group. Is newer riders, or maybe they got a vintage bike and they're like, I spend more time working on this and it's not what I thought it was going to be. So they're newer is why I'm saying not 100% new, or returning. They've had bikes. A common one is, I have an 800-pound Harley in the garage and I'm sick of moving this thing around. My wife doesn't like me riding it because it's too heavy. So they'll switch to a Classic 350 or whatever. Moto Guzzi guys have had 50 bikes their life. It's funny, they tend to be older. The demographics, if you look at them on paper, which I think we're trying to bring down a little bit. We're trying to be the cool, hip, young kids. And that's what Moto Guzzi America is trying to do. But typically, if you're into Moto Guzzi, you've been around a long time and you've always heard about Moto Guzzi, and you're eventually working your way to getting one, which is not, it's rare that it's someone's first bike. Sometimes someone just falls in love with the V7, We've got a couple people. You said the V85 reminded you of Himalayan. We've had a couple people move up from Himalayan to
I can see
V85.
that. I can totally see that. It'll get you a higher speed as well too.
Yeah, but it's rare that that's your first bike, and I think because it's a little weird. You know, the engine's sideways, and it rocks back and forth, and the clutch is a little less forgiving, and there are just some things about Moto Guzzis that someone really likes. These are the character things we always talk about with Moto Guzzi, but that's for someone who's had a bunch of bikes and they want a bike with character. They want a bike with a soul. Not that Royal Enfield doesn't have that, but it appeals to people who have had a lot of bikes. And I think a newer rider just thinks, this is a lot of weird stuff. I don't know if it's for me, and they'll get there.
Cool. Let me ask you about you. You said you have a YouTube channel. What channel is it, first of all, and what do you feature? And
well, it's really, I mean, sometimes I just call it mine, but it's the Throttle Company page. The main thing I do is called In the Loop. And the idea there was, especially originally with the vintage bikes, you know, this is some holy grail vintage bike, a 1970s CB 750 or some 60s Triumph. You'll never ride those. And I don't mean it in an arrogant way, but most people are never going to see one, let alone get the chance to ride it. So I want to let you know what it's like. You know, that bike you shift on the right and you kickstart it and it vibrates and it doesn't have mirrors and turn signals and all that stuff. So I try to give you the idea of what it's like to ride a vintage bike. I watch a lot of YouTube. I've seen your videos. I think it's important what people are doing. There's so much cool information out there, so many cool channels, and it's not like we're trying to make money from the YouTube thing, but it is surprising how many people come in here. Oh, I saw you on YouTube, or I saw another channel do a video like this on it, and I was like, I just appreciate the hell out of that kind of thing, because it's what I'm into too. So
good. Last question I had. How did you come up with the name? How did the name come up, Throttle Company?
Originally it was a joke, which is the best names are that way.
Okay, all right.
But I was sort of joking about, I always had this idea. So I lived in Florida for a while, and there's this place called Nice Guys Pizza. It's a great place if you're never in Cape Coral. And I used to joke that it was called Young Guys, because it's the only place anyone, so, you know, Florida's,
right.
That's the thing, it says old people, right? So I always used to joke that it should be called Young Guys, because it's the only place anyone under 40 ever went to.
Okay.
And I was like, it's so on the nose that there's no way anyone would ever call it that. So then I thought, Throttle Company, I thought, if we're gonna make a motorcycle shop, it should be like the shortest possible way to convey motorcycles.
Okay.
Sprocket or chain or something.
Okay.
Those apply to other things like a bike or bicycle or whatever. But a bicycle doesn't have a throttle, and a car has a throttle, but you never really call it that. You don't really call it a throttle. But on a motorcycle, you do. And so I thought it would be like a hipster place, and it would be called Throttle.
What information you want our viewers to know? We'll obviously put links in our description up here and down below of Throttle Company, Instagram, and all.
The number one thing I guess I like to convey is, and I would convey this to everyone, even you walking in, is that we give a shit. And so
there might be a bleep there, but okay, fair enough.
You'll get it. But the idea there, and what I mean by that is, I ride a Royal Enfield. That's my main bike. You're talking about which one I'm interested in. The only reason I don't have a Moto Guzzi right now is because I'm trying to pick the right one or whatever. My dad's Royal Enfield's over there. Nichole has Himalayan. She has a Harley as well. I don't know if you guys talked about that, but she has a Lowrider S. She has a Lowrider S, and she has a Sportster.
That's cool.
But so we're into it.
Yeah.
And what I'm saying is, I also want to help people. I want to help people. Cool. I know Royal Enfield, Moto Guzzi is the same way. Both of these dealers, vintage bikes. Who do you talk to? You know what I mean? And a lot of people send me these messages saying, I'm 300 miles from my nearest dealer. I drove there. It took me a weekend to buy my bike, and I drove back. I don't have anyone to help me fix my Himalayan or Interceptor or whatever. Not that they need a lot of fixing, but I don't want you to feel like you're alone.
Cool. Well, I do appreciate your time.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I will say, come visit Throttle Company, Columbus, Ohio. Again, we'll put links everywhere. And thanks for showing me around. And
my pleasure.
Yeah. All right. So we'll catch you on the next one.